Hello, good morning, and welcome to this, which is the 18th Firestarter Forum, which I always then follow up with the word ridiculously. I can't believe we've done 18 of these now. Last month, we had the topic discussing has the workplace really changed, or was it just a pause? And one of the subtopics that came up as a result of that conversation was the generation gap. So this question about has remote working increased the generation gap? Has it changed? Are there different perspectives going on now in the workplace from previously? So we thought we would try to do something a little bit different today and have some actual panel discussions. So here's a quick run through of the plan for the next 75 minutes. My first request, and I know even though we've been doing this for quite a long time, we still get new people every month. So it's worth just taking a little bit of time on this and how the session works. But my first quick request for people, if you know that you're going into one of the panels, please could you just make sure that your name on your Zoom label is kind of easy for our tech guys to recognize. So if you've got some crazy nickname on there that they're never going to get, please can you change it and just put your proper name. That will just help us with the tech as we go along. So the plan is bit of a scene set, really quick, and then we're just going to get into these three panel discussions, each hosted by a separate person, and we'll just be able to watch these quick panel discussions, and then we'll move towards a bit of a review of that, some breakout sessions, some polls, and then just close off. So it's a lot to get through in 75 minutes. Just a little bit of the Zoom etiquette. So everybody will have been brought on mute. The best view is the full screen view, usually top right, depending on what version of Zoom you are. In the breakout sessions especially, best to be on video so everyone can see who you are. When we're in the open forum, if you want to talk, then we will bring you up on the screen. You don't need to do anything for that. Also, ditto with the breakout sessions and the panel sessions. You don't need to do anything. You'll be just taken in automatically and spat out automatically as well. Please feel free to put lots in the chat as we go along. It really helps, especially for this one, because we have some media interest in this, and they're planning to, at last count, do a 4-page spread on it. So we need lots of content. So please feel free to comment vociferously in the chat as we go. If you point any questions to Matt Wheeler in the chat, then we can collect them at the end. And the polls, ditto, straightforward, shouldn't challenge anybody. So let's get on with it. So we're talking about the future of the workplace today, and we're going to look at it from three different perspectives. We're going to start with a panel of 4 or 5 established business owners, business leaders, and our good friend Dave Harries is going to spend 10 minutes with that group, just talking about their view on the workplace and the generation gap challenges in it. We'll then go to some people who are right at the beginning of their careers, and Juliet Nichols, who I'm going to introduce in a moment, will take that panel, and we'll have a little bit of conversation about what they're finding, their view on the workplace. And then finally, our own Mr. Matt Wheeler is going to shepherd our younger people panel, and talk to them. Most of these people are either right at the beginning of their careers or yet to embark on them properly, and Matt's going to talk to them about their views. So this is the plan. So let me just properly introduce these good people here. Bottom left of your screen, you can wave Dave if you want, is Dave Harries, who we all know is a presenter, interviewer, podcaster, video producer, podcast producer, hugely experienced, and also did our own Resilient Leader podcast series last year. Juliet Nichols here for the first time. She is a podcaster, founder and director of Pineapple Audio Production, and has done lots of work with people like Heart, LBC, GWR, Marie Claire, The Telegraph, and Metro. Also an award-winning radio audio producer, and has such things as Radio Academy's 30 Under 30 Award, and an honorary life member of the Student Radio Association. So, Julia, absolutely delighted to have you here today. And then our third host is Mr. Matt Wheeler, who is well known to us all, or most of us anyway, as the marketing director of Firestarter, co-founder member with me back in 2012. I'm so sorry. Off we go. So I hope we're about ready to go into our first panel. Thank you. And this is Dave, who's going to spend 10 minutes. So especially this first group of people, I know we love to talk, but we've got 10 minutes. So if we can focus on relatively succinct answers to Dave's wonderful questions, that would be great. Dave, over to you, my friend.
Thank you very much, Chris. And very quickly, let me introduce the panel to you all. Harriet Murray-Jones is a partner at Harrison Clark Rickaby's, working in real estate and renewable energy, and is also responsible for the current Future Workspaces research program. Tracy Adams is director at 10 to 2, providing flexible recruitment services throughout Gloucestershire and Bristol. Moaz Nurbai is the owner of the business consultancy firm MZN and also runs Kickstart Scotland, providing employment opportunities for young people as part of the government programme. And last but not least, Alan Tattersall is business advisor and non-exec director, working with a number of organisations, including as a trustee for WYSE, who provide leadership for young people. So I think you've all got excellent credentials for this discussion. I wonder, Tracy, let me start with you. Can you tell me whether you think motivations and expectations amongst the workforce have changed since you started, since you were starting out on your career?
Oh gosh, that's quite a long time ago. But I mean, I think certainly since I started, which was about 30 years ago, our expectations were that you went to the office, you sat in the office full time, and that was your job. That's where you work. And over the past few decades, I'm really sorry, this has changed. There's an echo. I don't know if it's me or if you can hear an echo.
Okay, well, look, I tell you what, Tracy, we can hear you well, but
Okay.
I'll go to somebody else while we try and sort that out, okay?
Okay.
Alan, let me come to you. Sorry, Tracy, I hope that's okay. Alan, let me come to you. Do you think remote working, the way we've all had to work for the last 15 months, do you think that's made the generation gap worse? Has it made things harder to connect with younger people?
We all forget that we're all younger workers once. And we've all had to adapt. This is just a new challenge for us in many ways. Hybrid working, I think, is here to stay for everybody. And for those in the room who are 40, 50 plus, the fact we're actually using this technology today, the internet, has changed the way we all work. So I think there's amazing opportunities for the new generation coming through. And I think there's some really interested from some of the younger guys in the next panels as to how they see the future. Because I think there's some great opportunities.
Okay, thanks, Alan. Sound is not brilliant for you either, but I think we got the gist of what you were saying. Miles, if I could turn to you now, do you think it's harder to attract and retain new young talent in a virtual office environment? I mean, is that an issue? I think you're muted, Miles. So if you could
try that. Fingers
crossed.
That's
better. We can hear you now.
I don't think it's a huge problem. I think employers need to be mindful of the fact of how do they learn and develop young people, how do they communicate with young people, and how therefore do they retain that talent. So in terms of an employer perspective, we need to be mindful of all of those activities to try and retain that talent. Young people are in the space of looking for flexible working, whether that's at home, whether that is a hybrid version, but that is an expectation that's coming through from young people.
Harriet, if I could turn to you now and just get you to unmute as well before you speak to us. Do you think that, I mean, obviously our working practices have had to alter over the last 15 months. Do you think we've had to adapt our culture and as well? And do you think that's had an effect on the generation gap, on the way we interact with the younger workers in our organisations?
I do, yes. So I think that the real difficulties making sure you communicate effectively still as a team. And that's very easy to assume knowledge or assume understanding. So it's really important that over the last 15 months, we've adapted how we work and how we coach the culture to remain inclusive and make sure we're affording opportunities to people, because everybody works in a different way. So some people may find it harder than others.
Tracy, I don't know whether you're able to communicate better with us now. Harriet just talking about communication there, ironically. But I was wondering, Tracy, what advice you would give to young people starting out today. In other words, what would you tell your 19-year-old self? If you were able to offer yourself advice for that matter.
We'll give it a go. I think I'll give them strongest advice, I'd say, would be communication. And especially if you're going to go forward in a much more remote working, technological focused world, I think you as 19-year-olds, you've got to take the lead and be confident in communicating, because we will expect our business leaders to look after you, communicate with you, train, engage you, but equally, definitely keep that communication flow going. Because without a doubt, I think networking will be here in some shape or form today, and it's going to take both sides to that work.
Sorry, Tracy, I cut across you there. Alan, I wonder whether the same question to you, really. Advice for young people starting out. Obviously, Tracy has really emphasised communication there. Do you agree with that?
I do. I would go a little bit further, in that I think the younger generation need to look at what's actually going on in the world as well. We worked a lot through WISE with looking at climate and the environment, for example. We've seen 3 major car manufacturers in the UK, Nissan, Ford, and Jaguar Land Rover recently announced big changes in the car industry. So what a massive opportunity for the new generation coming through. Those people working there don't have the skills. So these employers need to start putting things in place. And I believe our younger generation need to look to these and promote themselves to these organisations in different ways. What we've done in the past, it's not just about putting your CV there. It's what else can you do? And what can you do to contribute to the new world we're going into?
Again, I'm really fascinated by this question. The advice you would give to your younger self, and therefore, presumably the advice you would give to young people starting out now. Have you got any particular tips or things that you think could help them?
Be open. You can work anywhere. If you just take the UK market, you can work anywhere you want to work in the UK. So to find your ideal job or perfect job that you're looking for, you're not confined to what we were traditionally in terms of your area or your region. Actually, you can be in Scotland like I am and work for somebody in the Isle of Wight, for example. So be open to that.
So sorry, Mike. So what you're saying is because of the virtual aspect of it, because a lot of us are working virtually, remotely. Therefore, you can work for any company in the world, really.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Harriet, that's a very interesting point, isn't it? We're just not tied to location anymore. Do you agree with that? And what would be your advice to young people?
I do agree with that. And I think it puts an opportunity for young people, and it also poses businesses a challenge, which is fantastic, really, because it means that they have to adapt to a more agile, open workforce. So the culture has to be attractive. For example, some of our offices are in quite small towns. We need to make sure we're still retaining the best talent. So if we're not the best version of ourselves as a business, we won't retain that, because people can go anywhere they like. So my advice starting out would be, make sure you choose a company where you feel that you can be yourself and communicate, because one thing that is clear is it is unlikely you're going to be in the office, so you've got to form relationships in a different way and afford yourselves equal opportunities. So I think it's both a challenge and opportunity for people and businesses.
Thank you very much, Harriet. We are just about out of time now, but thank you all for your fantastic and very succinct answers. I'm sure we've all learnt a great deal from that. I certainly have. So I'm going to hand you back to Chris now. Thank you.
Thank you very much to our first panel. Excellent, really interesting. And I certainly feel I loved Tracy, and I know Tracy and Alan had a bit of choppy sound. So, but I loved Tracy's very first point, which was, and I know when I started work, it was you went into an office. That's what you did. You went into an office and you stayed in an office all day long, and then you came home, and that was your working week, and that was the culture. And I think Alan's point that actually, because that's really not likely to be the case, if you're going into the workplace as a start of your career now, you almost have to be more forthright to stamp your personality on your career, because there's so many greater obstacles in. So it's really interesting. Dave, what were your big conclusions?
Yeah, it's interesting what you're saying about going into the office and all that sort of thing. Yeah, the highlight of my first office job was the 11 o'clock cake trolley. I seem to remember. That's all I remember about it. But yeah, one thing that really came across to me was the importance of communications both ways. Communications from the senior members of a team to the younger up and coming members, of course, so that they know what's going on, particularly at the moment, and communication the other way around for the younger members of the team to actually communicate their thoughts and feelings and to be themselves, and to make sure that the older members of the team know that they have opinions.
Yeah, very good. So I think without further ado, what we're going to do now is we're going to move on from the seasoned, established folk. So Dave, I include you in that. And we're going to go to Juliet's group. So Juliet, you have got the people who are right at the start of their careers. So without further ado, Juliet, I'm going to hand over to you and your panel.
Great, thanks, Chris. So delighted to welcome 5 wonderful panelists here. If you could give us a wave when I intro you now, that would be brilliant. So Callum is a 26-year-old SaaS sales specialist at EXP Recruitment. Hi, Callum. Ben is a 25-year-old financial advisor for St James's Place. Megan's a 26-year-old trainee solicitor in the commercial real estate team at Harrison Clark Ricketts. Cara, a business development executive at CAD Venture. And Connie is a 23-year-old office manager at GeoMap Chartered Surveyors. Thank you all for doing this. So yeah, you'll just need to unmute yourselves when you answer these questions. I think let's talk first about working from home in general. So what's that been like for you? Callum, if we go to you first, what's that been like for you? What's your home setup like? How have you felt about it generally, the working from home thing?
Yeah, so I've been working from home even before the pandemic. As soon as I started working part-time during university, and then after I graduated, we were working from home. And so there's obviously lots of benefits to it in that you can be quite flexible. As all of us will likely know, you can just roll out of bed quite late and get to work straight away. But then also you can do, in the job that I have, I can work a bit later on, or I can work a bit earlier straight after I get up if I did want to get up early. So there's lots of flexibility with it, and I enjoy it. I did work prior to university in an office, so I do have a bit of a blend of experience there, and I think just the efficiency of it is great. I do think at times you may be quite isolated, but there's also a few ways that you can overcome that, and maybe we will explore some of those ways later on in some of the other questions. But yeah, that's my feeling about it.
Thanks, Callum. Yeah, I think we can probably all agree with that. Connie, would you agree with that? That kind of flexibility? Have you enjoyed that working?
Definitely. Yeah, I think a balance is definitely important. Obviously, I only worked from home for like a solid month. I was like part-time furlough before that. And like to begin with, it was great. Like Callum said, you can just roll out of bed and be ready for work in like 10 minutes, which is great. But yeah, after a while, it does get a little bit lonely. You don't get to interact with people like face to face as you would in the office, like getting a coffee or anything. But yeah, I definitely enjoyed the flexibility of it.
Yeah, for sure. And Ben, your work's changed quite a lot during this time, hasn't it? Because you've become self-employed as well as working from home. So tell us about how that's been for you.
It's actually been a huge change, especially in my profession, because it used to be before a lot of financial advisors just go out to meetings, etc., in people's homes. And of course, because of COVID, that's completely changed. We're not allowed to go into people's homes. We are now. So majority of our meetings, like everyone else, has to go online. So that was a huge shock, especially for me, because I learned from an advisor who only went out to meetings and only went to people's houses. So transitioning to have hosting meetings online similar like this was a huge step for me, and definitely a change of approach that I had to adapt going forward. But then also I had to change in my mindset as well. It used to be for work, I used to get up early, go to the gym, etc., and like Callum has said, we now roll out of bed and go straight to work. So it's a complete lack of to then rebuild that routine again going forward in a different way. So similar to Callum, I'm able to go perhaps in the afternoon and the evening rather than like I used to in the morning before work.
Yeah, thank you. And Cara, I'm interested to know if you still feel part of a team during this kind of, we were talking about a bit of isolation. Do you still feel part of a team? Has the culture changed a lot for you, or has it stayed sort of the same?
Yeah, so I mean, I'd say we're quite lucky in the sense of where I work, we're quite a small team anyway. We, even pre-pandemic, had kind of multiple offices and people working remotely. So I think communication via kind of Teams and on the phone has always been really good. I definitely did miss the kind of social aspect of being in an office when working from home, because I do think, well, especially in the career that I work in sales, that you do tend to bounce off each other quite a lot in terms of being in the office. So that was definitely something I really missed while working from home. But I think on the whole, in terms of actual culture, I don't think that changed, because we as a team were still very good at communicating.
Yeah, great. And then Megan, how has working from home changed for you? Has it changed drastically? Has it changed the way that you feel about work culture?
Yeah, so before the pandemic, I was mainly based in the office full time. So now I'm probably based in the office about 3 days a week. So I've kind of, a bit like Callum, really, I've had the best of both worlds, really, and a hybrid approach to flexible working. And I think probably particularly for us in our earlier stages in our career, everything has come down to, how we're able to be supervised from home. So I think with, platforms like Teams and Zoom and everything like that, it's just been a case of having to adapt and be proactive and communicate with your teams to make sure that you can still get the same level of supervision.
Yeah, the supervision is really important, isn't it? And the other thing I wanted to touch on is the kind of the future plan for you guys. Has it changed things in terms of where you see your career going? I don't know, Callum, maybe we'll come back to you. Has it changed things for you? The kind of where do you see your future now, given the breadth of choice?
Well, yeah, it opens up opportunities, doesn't it? Similar to the last panel, where you've got to be open to potentially working in one location, but working with a company that's in a completely different location. I guess it's opened up opportunities business-wise. We were originally working with just UK-based companies, and now we've got customers in Sweden, Berlin, and the US even, which because of technology makes that possible. And so I guess for me individually, it's definitely opened my eyes and my perspective as to what I could do and what I can achieve. But at the same time, I think I was always quite ambitious, and I always had goals that I wanted to achieve as well. So it doesn't necessarily, it's not changed my perspective on kind of the industry I want to go into or anything like that. It's more just logistically how my life will be. How my work life is going to be in the future. Maybe that's what's changed.
Yeah, that flexibility is so important, isn't it? Okay, well, we kind of need to get to wrap up now, but I want to hear from all of you just to finish off. Do you feel like this has been an opportunity? Is it been more of a challenge, a pandemic to your future? Let's go with Connie first. Opportunity or challenge? What do you think?
I think it's a bit of both. I mean, it was a challenge to begin with, because obviously it's so different to what you're used to. But I feel like younger people will, well, just talking from my own experience, I find it quite easy to adapt to new situations. But I was also glad to get back into the office. So it was nice to have that as like a little bit of a taste of working from home. But I know some people have literally worked from home ever since COVID began, and I don't know how I would have dealt with that.
Yeah. Megan, would you agree with that?
Yeah, definitely. I agree with them that it's been a challenge as well, but I'd also say it's been an opportunity in that it gives, I think, like the previous panel said, it gives employees the opportunity to have a bit more, I guess, bargaining power when looking for a new role, and you know, they can, I suppose, be a bit more selective in terms of where they work, and depending on what the firms are willing to offer for flexible working.
Great. And very quickly, Ben, opportunity or challenge?
I definitely think opportunity, similar to what Chasey said in the last panel, definitely areas I've had to improve on is definitely communication. So it's been an opportunity for me to just broaden my skill set, definitely, and especially the main one is communication. So.
Fab. And then Cara, to finish with you then, what do you think? Opportunity or challenge, or a bit of both?
Yeah, I'd probably say a bit of both as well. Mainly probably opportunity in terms of, I think it almost forces you to an extent to take a lot more ownership over your own work and your own schedule, which I think is quite a big area for development when you're kind of first starting those kind of aspects. So yeah, opportunity.
Wonderful. Thank you all very much.
Brilliant. Thank you so much to all the panel and also to Julia. I have to also comment at this point that the mute unmute skills of that panel were ninja. Yeah. No disrespect to everybody else, but they were on it. Right. Okay. So Julia, really exciting. I thought Cara's last point actually it was coming through to me all the way through that, which is just the. It's a real challenge when you're starting your job. You need some kind of mentoring, supervision, leadership, and effectively, if you're kind of on your own, it's out of sight, out of mind, I guess, is the potential risk, isn't it? As a manager of a person at the beginning of their career. So it's some really interesting points how that then switches back into the need for the person who start at the beginning of their career to take a whole different level of ownership of how they behave, I guess.
Yeah, definitely. That's a real opportunity for them as well as a challenge, isn't it?
Yeah, completely. And that seems to be the sort of, not quite the epiphany moment that everybody's having, but it's the okay, this is as many sort of different paths as it is causing me hassles, I suppose. So any other further just wrap ups from you, Juliet, just before we move into our final panel?
I think the thing that's coming through for me is this flexibility, and that, you know, we're really loving the idea of flexibility, I think, from that panel, and the opportunities that gives for work-life balance. And I don't think that's something that we're going to want to change by the sounds of it. Yeah,
very, very good point. And actually, I guess everything is connected, one of my favorite sayings, which means that the business leaders, business owners of today need to react to that, which I know is a big theme that Harriet was pulling through as well. So thank you, Juliet. We'll come back to you in a bit. Mr. Matt Wheeler, it is now down to you to manage our last panel. So I wish you the very best of luck. So over to you, Matt. And you're going to talk to people who are maybe ever so just starting. So maybe just a couple of steps behind the people we've just talked to, or not even at that stage yet. So Matt, over to you.
Thank you very much. And I'm delighted to welcome 5 lovely people here. And so as I introduce you again, as you did with the previous panel, if you just give a quick wave when I say your name. So we're starting off with Shannon O'Riordan, who's a 20-year-old student at King's College in Cambridge. She's also been doing some freelance work for a research company and has actually only ever worked remotely for them. We've got Ruth Boyd, who is a 23-year-old sales support advisor at Bramblecrest Garden Furniture, and had just recently graduated from Bristol University last year. We've got Luke Thompson, who's a 22-year-old sales development exec at Notify Technology. He also graduated from university last year. And we've got Peter Radzicki. Peter's 24-year-old. He's a marketing and products exec at Turbo Change in Glasgow. He's currently working at home quite a lot of his time. And then finally, we've got Sam Woods, who's an 18-year-old student who's currently looking at his options after just finishing A-levels and trying to work out what happens next in a post-COVID world. So I think, first of all, I think maybe Ruth, if we can come to you first, and just I'm interested to find out what you thought the working world was like before COVID hit, and sort of has what your sort of real experience matched up with what you thought it was going to be in the first place.
Hello. So first of all, I thought it'd be a lot easier to get a job than it was after graduating, and my expectations of the workplace were just what I think it was Tracy who said it previously: going into an office, working 9 till 5, and then going home, and that's your day done. That's what I'd assumed.
And how has the reality kind of reflected that, or kind of shocked you in terms of what you are actually doing?
So I'm not actually working remotely. I'm still going into the office, which I've found great, because I don't know how I would have worked remotely and been able to learn from other people. You know, of course, we have the technology of Teams and you know, to be able to communicate, but I think it's invaluable actually going in, speaking to different people, conversing with them, and just learning from them. I think it's invaluable. So I'm lucky to have done that, but I know others who are working remotely and they found it either difficult or they've loved it. It just depends on the person, I guess.
Absolutely. And so actually going to you, Peter, I know that you're spending quite a lot of your time remotely at the moment, aren't you? Is that your kind of first experience of work in a kind of remote environment?
Yes, definitely. I've had a number of jobs before through breaks at university, from labor jobs that you actually need to be on site, to marketing internships where we go into the office. And this is my first time working remotely. And to be honest, I think it's perfect because it's a creative role. You really don't actually need to be in an office for it. And any skills I need to learn, I can pick up from online training courses, or Colin, who's my boss. And then I've also got a bunch of skills that no one else on the team has to the same degree. So I just kind of pick the project and drive it myself. So there's really no need for me to be in the office, I think.
Excellent. That's interesting. And Luke, when you were looking for your job after university, what was most important to you, and what were you really looking for in terms of the sort of key things that an employer could offer for you?
So I guess in terms of like flexibility in work, I wasn't necessarily looking to work from home. I think I'd actually prefer to work in an office environment, especially because I'm working in sales. Like, I think one of the previous panelists on the last panel said, like, in sales, everyone bounces off each other. But because I started work and I had to work from home from the very beginning, I've not really experienced that. So I think that may have affected like my view of sales and of the role itself. I've not really got to actually experience what it's like to properly work in sales, if that makes sense, because I've been working from home, and also a lot of the teething problems of like getting all of the technology sent to me and things like that. That was quite stressful. But I think when I was looking for a job, like the main thing that I wanted was just something that I could grow, and something where I could really progress my career. It was the main thing I was looking for, I think.
Excellent, thank you, Luke. And just coming to you, Shannon. Obviously, you're still at university at the moment, and I guess kind of experiencing things slightly from a distance. But have the views of the panel and previous panels and your sort of general experiences kind of changed your expectations and sort of what you think you can achieve in a working environment when you do leave university?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, like everyone said, the flexibility is something that I kind of hadn't really considered before COVID, really. Like everyone was saying, kind of the 9 to 5 classic office job was sort of what I had anticipated. And now the option of flexibility, now I know that that's available, I think that's something that is pretty indispensable now.
Fantastic. And similarly for you, Sam, I mean, do you feel like you've got kind of more opportunities available to you, or are your kind of options having to change a little bit now?
Well, yeah, so I feel like, unlike many of the people here, I've never actually experienced a proper office environment. I've done bits and bobs for people, which means I've been in and out of the office, but I also feel like it's provided me with the opportunity to adapt quite quickly because I don't know any different. So it's just sort of the only problem that it brings is the fact that when everything does go back to normal, then I'll have to get used to what it was like pre-COVID.
No, absolutely. And just, I guess, collectively from all of your views, I mean, do you feel like your kind of needs and your own personal views are being addressed by the kind of organisations that you work for or that you've been involved with? So, Ruth, can I go to you first on that one? You know, do you feel like you're understood by your employer?
So as I am going into the office, I do think that I am understood, and I think it's been great for me to go into the office. But I have another friend, for example, who she was offered no flexibility before the pandemic, and she has an ongoing illness, which meant that she had to have a week off work every 6 weeks. But now she's able to work from home, and that flexibility has meant that she doesn't have to miss out on that week's pay. Her employer completely understands now, and so I think the flexibility is great. That was a story that I thought I'd add in because I thought it was quite important. So
no, that's good. And Peter, I mean, do you feel like you're supported by your employer, and being a kind of a younger member of the team, do you feel like you get what you need in terms of training and development?
Definitely. I mean, we're a small team, so we communicate quite well. And anything I want to work on or I need to complete my job, I will essentially get, whether that's from Colin or an external source, because there is so many information packages out there now, so that any skill set one of us is lacking, we can very quickly fill.
Excellent. And I'd actually quite like to flip it around the other way a little bit. Luke, do you feel like you're able to teach your employer something? Yeah, because everybody's learning, it's all new to everybody, and I guess the younger generation is arguably better at using technology and things like that than the older generation. So have you been able to offer that kind of support as well?
I wouldn't say in terms of technology, no. There've been a couple of maybe subjects in to do with like sustainability and things. Our business is really starting to focus on sustainability, and as a young person, I feel very strongly about it, and I'm quite knowledgeable about that area of things. And I've been kind of assigned little projects to do in that vein. When it comes to technology, though, no, I wouldn't say I could teach them anything because they're all very technologically literate. We're a technology company, so everything, they all know everything about that.
Fantastic. I mean, it's been fascinating discussion. Unfortunately, we are out of time again, but I think we could talk about this topic for a very long time. But thank you very, very much, all of you, for taking part. And now I should hand back to Chris again.
Thank you, Matt, and also thanks once more to all of the panelists, including my daughter. I'm so sorry, Shannon. So thank you very much. That was, again, fascinating, and again, just a slightly different lens that people are looking at it through, which just, I guess, just reinforces that people at different stages are just going to see it in different ways. But the other thing that did come across for me was just don't assume that everyone from generation 1 or 2 or 3 thinks the same way. That's just not how life works, is it? Like, different people have got different perspectives, irrespective of where they sit on things. So I think that's a massively important point. I want to go to Dave. So what we're going to do now, we're just going to spend a few minutes just quickly having a mini review amongst this panel whilst we get the breakout set up. We've also frantically in the background, Danny from our team has been putting together a summary slide of what's come out of these 3. No pressure, Danny. Come out of these 3 sessions. So hopefully, through the magic of life, before we go into the breakouts, we may be able to show that slide just to collect thoughts a little bit. But I'm going to go to Dave first, as right at the beginning, you started us off. But what are your sort of reflections, having heard what the other 2 panels were talking about in relation to what your panel was talking about?
Yeah, it's really fascinating, actually. I because obviously, I suppose the views of our business leaders perhaps were ones which we might have expected, having, as most of us are in similar situations and we've been through the pandemic together. But what was great about the other 2 panels was, as you said, we were getting a different lens, people from a different perspective. What really struck me about the middle panel, Juliet's panel, was the positivity there. Everybody was saying, yes, there were downsides, but there was opportunity, and they all seemed very optimistic, which was great. And the same with Matt's panel as well. They clearly there are things that are not brilliant about it, about working from home, but there's a lot of positives, and that's great that people are seeing the positives. And even as in, I think, was it Sam's case, he said he'd never really worked in an office, but he also felt he could adapt quickly to whatever was thrown at him, which I thought was brilliant. So yeah, very interesting, the whole thing.
Very good. So through the powers of technology and the brilliance of Danny and Paddy in our tech team, I think we've got this slide. So wow, look at this, brilliant, genius. So I'm seeing this for the first time too. I mean, I think let's just pick up on a random point. The kind of this point I'm going right bang in the middle. The early careers, Juliet. So this being together as a team encourages ideas, and I suppose it is this challenge. This came through to me loud and strong. I really personally worry about how do we foster team spirit, how do we foster culture when kind of people are dispersed. I mean, I'm completely in favor of remote workforces. I've been in them all my life, but when people are dispersed and their contact time is actually really bitty, so building this team culture. Somebody put in the chat, one of the most formative parts of their early career was going to the pub at 5 o'clock every night with their colleagues and building team spirit. So what are your reflections on that whole team culture, kind of needing to be together, not being together topic?
Yeah, I think it highlights, doesn't it, the importance of leaders, business leaders, really checking in with their younger sort of staff members to see how they want to approach that, so that they don't feel lonely, and possibly that we do need those occasional face-to-face moments, or even virtual social moments that aren't about work, that are just about having a kind of nice time and bonding and getting to know each other, so that we do feel like we're connected. I think that's what's coming through, really, isn't it?
Yeah, completely, actually, completely. So let's go back to the slide. I'll pick one more point just to put Matt on the spot, just because it's fun. So Matt, I guess what as a creative marketing person yourself, I guess, I mean, I know that you've historically quite liked the idea of shutting yourself away for hours on end, and I guess that to get on with the job, yeah. And I suppose, do you have any reflections on, has it really changed? Is any of this really different, or is it just the same stuff, like slightly kind of repurposed?
Well, I mean, I think clearly there have been changes, and sort of working in different environments, all day, every day, or working in a home environment all day, every day is kind of monotonous, I suppose, approach to it. Whereas previously, depending on the type of work that you're doing, you can have quiet time versus social time, and I think that's the challenge that we're all facing. It's that balance between coming up for air and actually integrating with people versus spending time sat at your desk. And I completely agree that everybody needs to have that quiet time to be able to get on with the job. But I do think there is a genuine challenge, as Juliet said just now, that the kind of non-work chats and the kind of the breathers and all of that kind of stuff that you need to take are really important as well.
Indeed, I wouldn't want to be in the water cooler business anymore. So brilliant. Firstly, panelists, thank you so much. Really appreciated. I'm sorry we were tight on time. As all our hosts said, I think we could have talked and talked. And then obviously Dave, Juliet and Matt, thank you so much for doing that for us. All of you were brilliant. So congratulations. So now what we're going to do is we are going to, as is traditional, we're going to go into our breakout groups. For people who haven't been here before, what we do is we just mix everybody up into some smaller groups. And we've got a topic, which is a pretty obvious topic. We're going to put you, there it is, in fact, we're going to put you into the breakout groups for about 15 minutes. I think we're pretty well on time, which is a small miracle, to be honest. You are likely, but not absolutely guaranteed, to have a Firestarter facilitator in your breakout room just to keep it moving. I know a couple of our guys are either on holiday or actually in client meetings. So I think we're a bit light on facilitators today. So if you don't have one, if someone could step up just to make sure that we don't go around in circles in the room. Usual rules apply. Don't spend all 15 minutes introducing yourself. That's not a great use of time. Just a hello and a wave. But just talk about this topic. So what have you learned today about how you and your business should change to support younger people as we move out of COVID? So if you are, I guess if you're a younger person, like as Alan said, step up and explain your position and what you want in the workplace. If you're a business owner, business leader, just reflect and listen, I suppose. So that is the plan. Keep an eye on the time. We'll see you back here in about 15 minutes. Please, if you end up being the facilitator or a good volunteer, if you could send some info to Matt Wheeler at the end of the breakout, maybe whilst we're doing the polls, that will just give us a bit of an opportunity to structure the Q&A session at the end. So thank you very much. Enjoy yourselves, and we will see you in about 15 minutes. Hi, everybody. I hope you had a really good time in your breakout groups. So we have not a lot of time left. We have about 9 minutes left. So we will crack on. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to run a couple of really simple polls. If you were a facilitator and you're able just to put a bit of chat in towards Matt or send some comments to Matt, if you haven't already, that will be helpful, because then we'll have a little bit of review afterwards. But our two polls, the first one should be coming up on your screen now. The question is, do you think that there is a genuine generational challenge in the 2021 workplace? And your options are yes, totally, or a little, but it's not a big deal, or a little, and it's definitely something we need to fix, or a resolute no. So if you could just vote, that would be great. And just a note to my good friends in the tech team, I can't see the results at the moment, so you're going to have to give me a cue as to what the results are. So if you could, if you all just vote, and then in a moment we will publish the results, and then someone will tell me in my ear what the results actually are.
Yeah, the majority of answers are towards a little, but it's not a big deal, and it's definitely something we need to fix, with 80% voting for those.
Okay, so
the rest are yes, and there are no no's.
Okay, so ironically, you can probably all see the results and I can't. So the answer I understand is that here it is. Perfect. So in the middle ground, it's all in the middle ground. Yeah. So the kind of a little. So pretty even split between those two middle grounds, but there is a kind of a fifth of people, just doing maths here, that said yes. So that was poll number one. Poll number two, possibly slightly more interesting. Which panel discussion surprised you the most? And what I would have loved to have been able to do was to ask this 3 times for the different types of people we've had here today, but we're just going to go through a generic. So which of the panel discussions surprised you the most? Firstly, was it the business leader discussion, the early career people discussion, or the younger people discussion? So just vote away, and once we're all done, we'll show the results. And I can actually see the results on the screen. I just can't see how you're voting yet. So we'll just give you a second to do that. And here we okay. So yeah, the middle group was definitely quite a sort of I suppose, as you would expect, probably one of the most real experiences, because there's people who are actually kind of digging in at the beginning of their careers and have got a little bit of experience under their belt and starting perhaps to see a combination of sort of the changing world, but had enough experience of it previously to have a bit of a comparator. So interesting indeed. And I'm sure that between this information and also the information that came out of that slide that we put together, we've got some really nice feedback that we can give. We literally have 5 minutes left. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get my my colleague and friend, Mr. Wheeler, up on the screen. I hope. Here he is. And Matt, just have you got some stuff to share, some thoughts to share from the world of Breakout Land?
The world of Breakout Land has been busy. Yes, lots of things coming through. Interestingly, some people don't like going to the pub, which I find very strange. So those are the people that like working from home. But also there's been some feedback about those who have just started work during the lockdown period. Are actually not having much fun in work. It's all work, and fun is for weekends and outside of that situation. So I guess the sort of generational interaction and the fun things that happen at work are not being experienced by those people that are solely working remotely. So that's an interesting point there. But if possible, I was just asking sort of Paddy and Stephen if we could talk to Harriet Mary Jones from Harrison Clark Rickaby's there, because she's been in a group where it's interesting to talking about people being more reflective about what's important to them and what they need out of work and life in general, I guess. But also there's a whole bunch of different issues that have come out as positive things from the kind of new perceptions of working from home. So are we able to bring Harriet up on screen at all?
Genius.
Yeah. There we go. So Harriet, it'd be great if you could just sort of expand on the things that your breakout room were talking about in terms of some of the changes that people have noticed.
Yes, I think we had quite a wide-ranging discussion actually, and one of the things that was really clear, Peter made a really excellent point, was that not only did it change the perception of working from home and that people were looking at it differently, but it allowed you to think about your life in a wider way. So the time that you might have spent commuting, so Peter, like me, spent an hour or two commuting every day, you can spend doing something different. Now, previously that would have been probably socialising, but it's allowing people to look at their life in a different way and take what, for me, I'm spending quite a lot of time gardening, but it's probably not what the younger people are doing. And actually look at what they want from work and what they want from life. So I think overall it's caused people to be really reflective. And we've also briefly touched on the environmental benefits of people not commuting, and how for actually so in our survey that we did through the Future Workspaces survey, it was surprising how many people were happy that they weren't commuting as much for environmental reasons as because it was, you know, a waste of time.
Very interesting. Very interesting. On both counts. I have to ask you. Go on, Matt. After you, go on.
I was just going to say, I've just spotted another comment that's just come into the chat actually on the flip side of the commuting topic, because it is a huge topic from all different fronts actually, but there is a temptation for people to work through that traditional commuting period. So you know, the hour that you would have spent in the car going to work and coming home, you're now spending potentially 2-3 hours extra working instead. And there's a danger of, you know, burnout and sort of blurring the lines between sort of home and work life and all of that kind of stuff as well. But
that's definitely
I guess
true.
with every positive there's a negative, isn't there?
Yeah, in our survey, I can't remember the percentage, but it was over 60% of people thought they were working longer hours, and they were blurring that distinction between home and office, which is a real challenge. And I think that's something offices and businesses need to be really aware of.
Completely. Right, we are bang on time. Harriet, just before we leave you, firstly, thank you ever so much. Secondly, I just want to know what your biggest gardening success has been then in the last year.
I think it's my vegetables.
Excellent.
I'm very pleased with them.
We all celebrate your vegetable creation. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Not my children. They're not so thrilled.
Okay, brilliant. I thought, right, okay, brilliant. Thank you so much. Right, Matt, thank you as ever. We are bang on time.
No problem.
So we need to wrap up. This could go on and on and on, and I think it's a really interesting topic. And as always with the interesting topics, we will try to come back to it in a different format at some point. So just before we go, I would like to thank everybody, all the panelists for putting yourselves out there. Really appreciate it. Dave, Julia and Matt for your excellent hosting of the panels. There they are. They can wave in a kind of celebrity squares type way. Excellent. Stephen and Paddy, as ever, I don't know why we do it to ourselves. We just keep mixing it up and changing it and making the technical stuff even like different. Why don't we just do the same stuff? I don't know. But that's brilliant. We're doing a great job. So thank you guys. Thanks to all the Firestarter guys for helping out as well. And to all of you for your participation. We're going to take a bit of a break. We're not doing one in August. So we will be back in September. So please keep coming. Please keep sharing. Please keep inviting people who you think this would be a good fit for. We love having you here. We've had over 200 people join these sessions so far. And we will see you all soon. So thank you very much.